Hey guys, welcome to the Commando cast. I am Mike.
And I'm Andrew, and time and round has become an increasingly important thing in Destiny. We've been seeing a lot of rounds going to time, just with the way the current meta is right now. So today, Mike and I are talking about picking up the pace.
So speaking of picking up the pace, Matt Holland, our Lord and Savior today, dropped on Facebook that the schedule for covert missions was going to be January?
He said he was hearing that it would be January. He did not say anything about schedule.
Right. So he's hearing, which...
Correct.
We are now going to book January. If it doesn't come out, I expect there to be pitchforks and riots.
But hey, there are 31 days in January.
Correct. So yeah, I'm most hopeful for it being released by the time the Las Vegas Grand. That is asking a lot, right? 'Cause
I have a sneaking suspicion that that's what they're shooting for, and I also have a sneaking suspicion with the holidays that they won't hit it. Yeah. But it's late enough in the month that it could foreseeably, like, it could drop like January 7th or something and make it. Right?
And I know we always get this wrong on the number of days for legality.
Well, it used to be Thursdays. It's Friday now, so I think it might have changed. But it's like 10 or 11 days.
Okay, and that's like from the date of release to like that level of tournament. So they'd have to release basically in the first 10 days of January.
Right, but again, we've seen over and over again that all of these tournaments and all these primes or whatever can kind of make their own rules anyway because they've got the bullet point out. So as long as everybody knows when it's going to be re-released and there's sufficient time for people to get product, and then there's the whole thing of like if they're selling product on site, they can also do it right. So basically, just if you're going to the LVO, just see what's legal.
Yeah. No, and I think it'll be a farewell to the previous meta, mm-hmm. or it'll be the welcoming into the new meta, and I think that's super cool. He also mentioned in that same post, I believe, that to expect some sort of
change in the meantime.
Yeah. Meta shakeup.
Yeah, so I don't even know that, like you just said, it's the swan song for the meta. I don't even know if that's the case, because we could potentially have a new meta by, I don't know. I mean, he said he didn't know when the change was coming, so that means it's not coming like next week, because last RRG update, he knew like 8 days beforehand it hit or something like that, right? So I don't know. What are we looking at? Like,
so I'm gonna make a prediction.
December.
Yeah, I think it will be I think it will be around the 10th of December.
Why the 10th?
I say that because Thanksgiving is hard to get any business done before mm-hmm. Thanksgiving. It's hard to get any business done directly following Thanksgiving, but they'll definitely want to get it done before Christmas. So that's why I kind of...
Yeah, no, that's fair. And then when's the Washington Prime?
The 14th.
14th.
Yeah. So
it'll probably, just because that's the way life works for us, it'll probably drop like 4 days before that. Right. And then there'll be this huge debate over whether it should or shouldn't be legal, right?
Well, either way, I've got my chopper droids ready to fire off, or whatever the new hotness is. Yeah, like Luke, X-Wing, Death Machine, Fast Aggro. I'm really excited about that. Lots of guns.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I'm talking for Washington.
Oh, for Washington. Yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what are they going to do. Like, I mean, if you listen to the chatter, like in the other content creators, and then on the Discord, we could be looking at some sort of point adjustment, maybe a couple cards on the restricted list. So
I think restricted list is the easiest one, right? I mean, people have been calling for Fist's Head officially now. Like, it would be pretty easy. The one I've seen and I think makes the most sense and is low-hanging fruit is Del Fist on the restricted list. Like, that actually seems pretty reasonable.
I just wonder, and I know we're not here to talk about what but yeah, I think if you hit Del Fist hard without hitting anything else, it just makes chopper droids like that much better. Like the Del Fist is kind of a natural predator.
I don't think you're wrong.
So anyway,
we could see Mill get even better, right?
Mill, that's me. I took Mill to Worlds and had a lot of fun. People were not prepared for that. They were, like, for my pods, like I'd sit down across from them and they were like, oh, like it used to be you kind of practiced against Mill a little bit and learned out what your deck should be doing. And there was very little preparation for that.
Right. Well, and we've very consistently seen throughout this game that near the end of a meta, or once, I shouldn't say near the end, but as the meta becomes more established, that's when Mill starts to creep back in, right? So, I mean, it's well past that time. Yeah. If it's playable, it's going to pop up now more than anything. True. So, anyway, all right. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today is speeding up the play, or speeding up your individual play. And the reason that becomes important is because we've been seeing, the 35-minute rounds. We saw a lot at Worlds. A lot of games are going to time. And that's not just slow play. That is a factor sometimes, because it's a very good win condition against like a Palp or a Mill, where you're in front of the damage race, right? So some people do slow that down. But in general, what I wanted to talk about more is how you as an individual player, what actions and steps you can take to actually increase your pace of play so that you will have a better chance of finishing the game.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that's a great topic. And I think we talked a little bit about this before we shot. I think for me as a player, I try to keep a schedule of play. Like if I'm playing a deck that does not want to go to time, which all my decks don't want to go to time. So if I know I've played my deck and my deck consistently either wins or loses in 4 rounds, right? And I have 35 minutes in which to finish those rounds. That means I have somewhere in the range of about 8.5 minutes per round.
Okay.
Right? I mean...
max.
Right. So if at the end of round 1, if we've spent 11 minutes to finish round 1, either due to my indecision or my opponent's indecision, I then, as the player who doesn't want the game to go to time, I have to then tighten my actions up because I can't control what my opponent does. Right? I mean, I can
within reason.
Within reason, right? I there's only so much I can do. I can ask them to pick it up, but generally that's going to put people like in a bad mood, and I don't like to do that. I mean, in a big tournament, it is what it is. Call a judge, that sort of thing. But I can control my own pace of play. So if my opponent is going to take 20 minutes of a 35-minute round, that leaves me 15 minutes to play, and I have to get my game done in that amount of time. I guess is my personal outlook on it.
Okay, so I mean, and that's a perfect philosophy. I guess the question I have more is how do you facilitate that, right? So you just tell yourself, okay, I have to pick it up, and then you spend less time on decisions because that seems that it could back you into a corner.
It does, but I think that is more prevalent when you're not good at your deck. Like once you've had lots of reps on your deck, I think when you go into the tank in a game, and for those who don't know what that means, like when you're playing a game and you take that minute to make a decision as to what card to play or whether to discard or reroll, that is called going into the tank. And I generally reserve each player to have one into the tank moment.
One or two.
Right. Because there's a pivotal point in the game where you're going to either math your way to a victory or you're going to math your way to defeat, right? And you have to be able to stop.
I agree.
And account for that. But I've seen a lot of players locally and in other tournaments where there's into the tank moments like often. Like every third or fourth action at times feels like it goes into the tank. And I think that is when you're new on your deck, it's because you don't know what to do, and you're making those decisions that later on you become reflex to you. And then if you're good at your deck and you're doing that, it's probably because you're unsure of yourself and you don't want to make a mistake. And I think sometimes by playing slower than you need to, you're making a mistake.
Sometimes you're overthinking it too.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, I see, and I want to be very clear, right? So we're talking more specific from Worlds because I was very surprised at Worlds where you have to assume that 90%, if not more of the population knows their deck. Right. And there was still a lot of games that were moving slower than I would have expected, or even reaction times happening slower than I would have expected. And sure, people are going to want to think, but a lot of times there's somebody rolls out, you either have removal or you don't.
Right.
And I even saw, at Worlds, I saw people looking at their hands 2 or 3 times per round. And I've always been very fortunate. One of the great gifts that I was given when I was born was that I can look at something and remember it pretty well, right? I can go through a set and I can remember the cards pretty well. So I can look at my hand and remember, for the most part, what's in my hand. Maybe need to scan it 1 or 2 times for whatever. But I see some people, even at the Worlds level, watching games, I would see people look at their hand and then they put it back down and they do something. And then their opponent would go, and then they would pick up their hand and react, right? And I think you can speed up a lot by... I'm wondering if those people aren't thinking just immediately and not thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Right? Because you should know that if you're going to roll out, or you should know that based on, I have an easy pickings in my hand. If my opponent rolls out matching symbols, I'm going to pick. And there really shouldn't be a 30-second delay there. It should be roll out, pick. Right. That's about the pace that it should be, right?
I will say, like, so I judged at Worlds, and there was, and I was near the top tables all the entire tournament, and I had 0 calls for judge due to slow play.
Okay.
Like, not a single person had a
So then why
problem.
were so many games? I mean, and I'm not saying slow play.
No,
right?
absolutely not. Yeah.
Why were so many games at Worlds going to time? Because it was a major complaint that I heard about Worlds that wasn't due to, like, the organization of Worlds.
But,
right?
well, I would say one of the major reasons was Palp was pretty well represented. I don't think it was overrepresented, but there was a lot of players at the top tables that were in Palp. There were also players that were teched against Palp, and if you're, as a Palp player, if you know that your opponent, because you've seen his list, right? So we're in top cut, right? On video, we have 90 minutes to finish the round. You know that your opponent's running Scorched Earth. So we had many a game where, because that Palp player knew what was happening, like the rounds were taking even longer.
Just because it's
he was rolling, cat
and mouse.
Right, he was rolling out Mahdi and then like discarding a card to reroll Mahdi, trying to get to the discard side, right? Playing Mastermind on Mahdi instead of Palp, where you normally would not do that, so that you could hit that.
Go
and
fishing.
so I do think, and I think with that level of event, obviously, if you're playing for the championship of the world, there's a reason why that game has a 2-hour time limit instead of an hour and a half, because the stakes are so high. You do not want to make an error. You want to be able to have a moment to look and examine everything. As a competitive player, I don't want to do that for a 10-hour tournament, because I think by the end I will fail. I'll reach the end of my mental capacity if I take that long. So I generally do not play thinky decks in long tournaments. I know that's weird, but like I would never.
No, that's not. I mean,
I would
understand.
never play Thrawn.
Sometimes you need to be able to roll threes and just close the game.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Like I would never play Thrawn because I could not consistently look at 4 cards, put them back, remember what they are, and then keep that knowledge in my head for the right time to play your card. Like my brain doesn't work like that very well. It's the same thing. I don't know if I can play Raylo for 10 hours because Raylo is sequencing the game. And I don't know if I could sequence like that long, that consistently enough to be successful. Okay.
So you're saying part of moving faster then would be to make sure that you're playing the right deck.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's for you, right? And obviously, I mean, the practice and all that's inherent in this, right? You obviously should know the deck. You need to know the cards. Okay, so let's get away from the Worlds then. So what strategy? So for those of you who watch the Dice Commando channel and watch the games, we naturally have some players who are slower than others, right? And those players who are slower are consistently the ones who are slower. So if you are just playing in your local when you don't necessarily have as much practice on the deck because it's a new deck to you, what tips can you then use to speed up your play?
To speed up my play or speed up the game?
Both.
Okay, so
if maybe you're sitting across from that individual.
So a lot of these people are my friends and I have a relationship with them. So I don't mind going, dude, come on, seriously, discard a card, let's go.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to go to time at my local. I want us to be done in time enough to play a bonus round. I mean, I know it's their right to play within the time limit, but I will try to encourage my opponent at a local level because they're my friends to come on, pick it up, let's go, seriously. I mean, I have people that I'm very close with that I've done that before, where I'm like, okay, seriously, come on. And then again though, normally it's just about me picking up my pace. I feel like if if I pick up my pace around someone who's playing slower, they inherently will pick up their pace as well. People generally mirror. They're not going to go as fast as me, and I'm not a fast player by any means. Like I'm not fast. If you ever see me on camera, this is me pretty much every time. I look at my hand, I activate my character, I pick it up, I put the dice back down, I turn it back up, I look at my hand, I play a card. Like I mean, you could probably count like 50 times over the course of a 2-month period. I do that, but that's more of just my nervous tick.
And us playing in casual and moving faster. I mean, that's fine.
Right. So I don't think there's a way that you can do anything except being, especially at a local level, be brisk about your decisions and be willing to live with the consequences, because you're going to learn from the mistake you make, even with a fast decision.
Fair enough. Yeah. So what's that's an interest. So this isn't necessarily speeding up your play or tips for speeding up your play, but what's the acceptable amount of time to sit across from someone before you do the come on dude, right? Like you said,
that's hard.
The first minute and a half is okay.
Is my first beer gone? Because that's
that's fair.
Right.
No, but
I would say, like, if you're
realistically,
in the tank,
aren't there some decisions where there's really no decision?
Correct. Right. Like either you have, like you said, I've got lethal on the board. You either have it or you don't have it. Like, I mean, unless you have some weird trick, like to somehow playing multiple removal cards, or like either you got it or you don't got it. Like that's just the way it is. To answer your question, it's generally kind of a cumulative thing for me. So if I'm playing against someone and they're in the tank first round, I'm already going, okay, like, this is probably I'm probably gonna have to say something, and then I will, like I said, I generally afford my opponents 1 or 2 tanks per round, and then it's like, okay, come on. But if we're ahead of schedule, like if they want to take all the time they want, and we're playing fine, and we're at 20 minutes, and I'm about to kill them, they can take all the time they want. I mean, that's really, at that point, it's just a matter of getting the game done. The rules for time are designed for you to finish the game. Like that's the whole point. So if it takes 35 minutes, fine. It's really only a problem if someone is using the time to their advantage, or every game they play goes to time, because that's a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's more why this has become relevant is, we've always had games that go to time from time to time. It happens, right? But with Palt being in it more, I mean, you and I used to be able to run a 4-round local pretty consistently within 2.5 to 3 hours. And usually closer to 2.5, right? And if you actually think about it from Monday Night Dice, like we actually have a hard close that we have to hit.
Right.
And lately, what I've been noticing is that we're definitely much later. And I've also been noticing, even at Gongai, that a lot of the rounds, once they go to time, take like 10 minutes after time, as opposed to before, where it took maybe a minute to a minute and a half after time. Right. So now we're already in the 45-minute round space.
And you haven't even paired up, right, for us to move and to
right. And
shuffle.
I mean, I get that turned around pretty quick at my tournaments, and I've been given the feedback it's too quick. Right?
That's fine.
I mean, I move quickly so we can try to. I mean, not just because we're in a rush, but like you got places to be, right?
Right.
But yeah, now we're pushing 2.5. Sorry, now we're pushing like 3 hours or more on some of these tournaments, and it really begs the question of. I mean, that's where the meta is. It's fine.
Yeah. It's just,
and yeah, once your time's up, like. There's no penalty. You can go as slow as you want, right?
Yeah, and that, I think, maybe
and you have to do more math then.
Right. That again, the stakes are higher at the end of the game. Because Destiny does not have an end of timed round rule, like it's just time's over, finish the round, right? In other games that you and I both play, there is a specific rule set up. Like in Argent Saga, they have the turn 0, 1, 2, 3, but even that is supposed to be timed. You have 5 minutes to finish that 0, 1, 2, 3.
So after time, you're still on time.
Correct. Right, yeah. And then I believe in there are certain tournaments where that you get 10 minutes. And then I know there's games where Dragon Ball Super is the same way. Like it has a 0, 1, 2, 3, and it has got a 10-minute timer. And then if you are mid-win, like your card's about to hit the table, and they call time after time, it doesn't matter. You got to draw. Like, there is no...
Oh, so they call it a draw in that case, if it's not done?
Correct, right.
So is that something we should explore in Destiny?
We don't play best of 3, so that's kind of a little bit wanky, right? That's the ultimate problem. But since we're talking about time, one of the things I appreciate about Destiny is most people play to win the game in Destiny. there is a huge subset of game players across many games who play a best of 3. The object of their deck is to win the first game and then grind the second game to time, because they've already finished. And then if the second game's a draw, they automatically get the round victory.
I see.
And I think that's awful, and not in the spirit of Destiny. That's definitely for sure.
Right.
And those decks have side decks. So you could actually win your first game and then mulligan in.
Switch a third of your deck.
Right into like
fifth of your deck, whatever.
Stall mode, right? Yeah, into where I'm just going to play defensively. Imagine if Destiny players could do that, where you could play the first round and then I'm going to play 14 removal instead of 9. And
yeah,
then,
we'll turn our 3-hour tournament into a 6-hour tournament. That sounds awesome.
Saturday in Gongai, when you were not there, we finished 3 rounds of Destiny in 1 hour and 42 minutes.
That's about but that's about what it should take. Like, most games of Destiny, barring like a PALP or whatever, should take like 25 minutes. Right.
Yeah, we were playing aggro decks too. It was really fun. Actually, we just I heard shooting.
I heard Maul Phasma took it.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Nice. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it, right? I mean, I think the other thing, right, is I do when I'm doing these. When I'm doing the recordings or I'm doing the commentary on a lot of these, when I notice games that are slow, what I mainly notice is how often people look at their hand, right? Because I'm also looking at their hand to try to see what's in there so that I can do the commentary. Right. And it's very interesting to see, and I'm wondering, when you look at your hand before every action, what are you looking for, right? So I think that's what you need to ask yourself at the beginning of the round. I shouldn't say beginning of a round, sorry. Beginning of every turn, beginning of every action, people are looking at their hand. So at the beginning of the round, when you draw up, you have the cards in your hand. If you need to pause then to make a plan of obviously you don't know what your opponent's going to do and what they're going to roll and what you're going to roll. So like there's of course flexibility, that's what this game is. But you should be able to come up with a general outline of what your strategy for this turn is going to be. It's like, okay, I drew an upgrade and an action cheat and a removal card, right? I mean, I think most of us can figure out where we're going to go with that. We're going to play our upgrade. Maybe we're going to overwrite. We're going to get one character in. Then we're going to action cheat the other one in and try to hit. Like, that's it. Right. And then you're going to remove, and maybe you're going to heal or whatever. But that plan will have to change timing. But in this game, you only have 5 cards in hand. Your opponent only has so many things they can do. It's very rare in this game that your plan for the round does a 180. Right.
I think a lot of times people are trying to see if they miss something. And also having such a diverse play group that and now we have like a global play group, right? Because we're going to these big tournaments and we're playing online. There is a big, wide variance between people's ability to process information quickly. Not everybody is like, I know some very young people who play so fast I cannot follow what they're doing, right? And it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it, right? Because our ability to process information is at a different place in our life. There's people that are my age who play very fast, and I have a hard time with it. It puts me on edge.
Sure.
So I certainly don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to say that everybody has to play at the same pace. I think my biggest takeaway from this is you can control your own pace, right? If you are consistently going to time, it's something that you can hopefully, unless you have a disability, right? I mean, that's always an issue, right? If you can't read the cards to go faster, then I totally get that. I'm not talking about that at all, but I think it's something you can go in and help improve yourself as a player to do. And then when I'm playing with someone who's slower than me, all I can do is kind of pick up my own pace. And then if it becomes a gameplay problem, I'm going to say something. If they're a friend of mine, I'm probably going to give them crap about it, right? If they're not a friend, we haven't made a relationship, and we're in a actual big tournament. I'm probably just going to call for a judge and just be like, hey,
the tactic I use, I say reminder, we have 10 minutes left. I've definitely done them. Be like, hey, just a heads up, we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah,
right. And that can serve two things. One, it can be interpreted as a passive aggressive hurry the F up. right? Or it can just, hey, you know what, I did lose track of time.
Yeah, because we've had that happen before, right? Where you're playing and like, oh my gosh, there's only 5 minutes left, and then all of a sudden it's a big fire drill, right, to finish the game. So, so that's my thoughts on pace of play anyway.
Yeah,
just
fair enough. So,
yourself.
yeah, just something I wanted to ask. It has become a big deal or not a big deal, but it's become an issue in some of the local metas and the world's meta and just what we're looking at. So anyway, thanks for that. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just this weekend. I think we're kind of in holding standard mode at both of our locations. Right?
Yeah, I am going to start kicking off theme days at Gongai.
Fun, okay.
That's harder to do at Gongai because we have a lot of younger people who aren't on social media for
it is a little harder to communicate.
Whatever reason. Which is completely reasonable from a protecting young people standpoint. So that becomes a little more logistical to get that out.
Right. You have to kind of plan for it well in advance.
So I think we may be trying to, I need to decide on the structure, but I need to decide on some structure similar to yours where if you show up with a standard deck and it's not standard, or you know what I mean? Like if you show up with a non-themed deck, then there's some bonus for doing it. So I know at Gongai they usually get 2 packs. Maybe what we'll do is you get 1 pack and then you get 2 packs for a theme or something. I don't know. Well, I'll talk to them and figure it out because obviously they end up owning the compensation side of it. But we need to do something to keep this fresh and going on. So
I honestly feel like just with especially on Saturdays, I do feel like people bring a lot of different decks. Like I don't feel like I've been beaten to death by Delve Fist or Droids on Saturdays. I feel like I get more beat up with that on Monday nights anymore, just because people want to play more competitively on that night. But
I think that's why we used to do it at yours, and we haven't done a theme night at Monday night in ever.
Yeah, it's been like 6 months.
Right. So I'm wondering if that doesn't feed into it. But it is just a different crew. But, in lieu of not doing it because Mondays has become our competitive night, I think almost it makes sense to actually try and shift Gongai. But I don't want to get away too long from it either. So.
And you don't have to do it every week, too. That's always.
Oh, no, we certainly won't do it every week, without a doubt.
Okay.
So, anyway, just exploring that. But to be clear, for everyone going this weekend, it is standard. We'll see you tomorrow with your standard deck ready to go.
So. Get ready. Get sharpen your droids, my friends.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
Go Commando.
Go Commando.